today about personality types and going through which each personality type is and the characteristics of it. If you want to take that assessment, just reach out to Jessica, yeah, or Aaron. Either or, okay. They'll send you the link, take the assessment, and then book a time with me, and I'm happy to validate it with you. Okay. I am just the messenger, right?
That's for my benefit.
Yeah. But you'll actually be surprised on how accurate it is, based on how you're answering it. There is a large margin of error considering what you've done that day, how you're answering it, what your mindset is, during the answering process of the examination or the assessment. There is no right or wrong. The key thing about finding out who you are is how do we build your business around who you are? Business is not textbook. Every business is run separately, differently. So when I was a team leader in Ontario and I was coaching a lot of agents and stuff in Ontario, I found that there's a lot of programs out there that try to take a square peg and stick it around a hole and say, this is how you need to be in order to be successful in business. Then they try to tell you, this is how you need to be successful within real estate. So I kind of challenged that a little bit. I'm like, well, what if we were to look at your personality types, and then we can start building your business around your personality type. And that's when I got introduced to the DISC, and I became obsessed with it. So now I'm a certified behavioral consultant. Now through the DISC, I use the DISC for many different things. I'm working on right now being certified in the Colby test, which is another measurement of part of the brain on how you get stuff done, how efficient you are. So when you merge the personality assessments to how you actually are efficient, you can now start to, create your own job. And also when you're building a team, hiring the right person for the right position, as opposed to, maybe you have the right person, but they're not in the right role. So that's kind of my mission, my goal. So I'm going to go back and forth to my computer here. With the DISC, one of the things we always say, especially with the DISC, is everybody's different, but everybody's predictably different. And using the DISC is going to help you, one, build your business and the models that we use within Keller Williams. So your lead gen model, what do you like to do for lead gen? If you don't like the cold call, well, that's a personality assessment. That's a personality type that doesn't like the cold call. Some people love to cold call. I personally don't. Right? Because I'm a high I and I fear rejection. But we're going to get into that a little bit more. So we can literally build lead gen models for us, ourselves, but also for our team as soon as we know what personalities we are. Okay. So a little bit about me. I own Real Consulting, which is a coaching company, your productivity coaching business for this office. I have a team of realtors in Ontario called Prestige Realty Group, who were a Platinum Award winner. I pulled myself out of trading real estate about 3 years ago when I moved out to the East Coast. I do trade once in a while. I probably do about 10, 12 deals a year, but it's typically for my friends and my family, and everything else gets funneled through my team. So we're, I would say 95% leveraged out of my real estate world in the trading side. With the coaching side, I'm very passionate about it. I love it. And I'm helping people build their businesses. I'm also a MAPS business coach. So our sister company is Keller Williams MAPS Coaching. And I'm on the business side. So we help corporate companies and people outside of Keller Williams to help build their businesses. Now, what's happening right now is Keller Williams MAPS Coaching and MAPS Business Coaching are they're starting to work together more closely. So all the things that we do with MAPS is all the things that you guys do with KW MAPS. Guys, same tools, same things. What we do is we strip out Keller Williams language and bring it in. I'm a certified behavioral consultant, like I said, and I'm also part of the John Maxwell leadership team. Any questions? I don't like that. Okay. So we're going to do an exercise right off the bat. I need you to take a piece of paper and a pen.
Can you tell the personality type already?
Yeah. Yeah, there. Yeah, you get a book. So, and those of you at home, please get a piece of paper and a pen. And actually, I see Renee on the thing. I think, Renee, did we do this when you're in St. John? So I need you to draw a line down the middle of the page. Right down the middle, and then one right across the middle of the page. So it looks like this. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna describe a couple of things, and I want you to put a dot where you feel, what quadrant you feel you fit in the most. Okay? So are you more of an active person, where when I say active, I mean outgoing, extroverted? Do you like to talk and teach and, you know, that kind of stuff? So would you be more active? Or opposite of that, are you more passive? Are you kind of the person that sits in the back of the class and doesn't really say much, but you listen, and you kind of like, you go to a party or a networking event and you're kind of like sitting in the corner, or you're sitting at the table and you're okay with it, right? It's like, are you more passive? And then I want you to ask yourself, are you more of a people person? You love people. We talked about this a little bit last night. Or are you extroverted? You like to be around people. And actually, I look in this room and I'm like, you made it here today. So I would probably put a lot of you into the people side, or part of your personality type would be on the people side. Or are you more task oriented? You like lists. Is everything that you do on a list? Okay.
It's interesting because I think you have your natural tendency and what you've conditioned yourself to be.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because I can do a list and tasks, but man, I definitely gravitate more towards people.
Yeah, and the reason why, so when we're doing personality assessments, it's you can't pigeonhole yourself to one personality. We all have a little bit of all of them. It's what comes more organically under stress, or when you're relaxed, because you're one way at home, you're another way when you have a deal falling apart, right? What personality is going to come to the surface, or if you're under a timeline crunch. So for instance, I'll kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit. I'm a high IS, or a high ID. So I love people, but when I need to get stuff done, my D kicks in and I become like, boom, boom, I just check it off. I put the people to the side so I can shift my personality to make sure that it gets done. There's some people that they're so far over here, this doesn't even exist, right? Anybody, but by knowing that about yourself, you can start to surround yourself with people that are task-oriented people. Okay? So I want you to kind of put, where do you feel you fit on the box? Okay. What quadrant? Yeah. Oh, sorry. All right. So who put themselves in the top left? Okay. So that represents what we call the D personality type. It stands for dominant, you're a driver, and you're decisive. It's about 3% of the population is a high D, okay? If you feel that you're the most, like that's where you're like, yep, Colin, I am super active and I'm task-oriented, I'm a D. Okay? One of the traits of a D personality is when you know you're a D, your hand shoots up. I'm a D, right? And you're not afraid to tell other people that you're a D. Okay? Who put them in the top right? Okay. Awesome. And if you put yourself right in the middle, that's okay too. Because what happens is you may find yourself, yeah, I kind of can do both. Typically what happens when you're right in the middle, you're more on this side, because the I, it stands for influencer, interactive, and you're always interested in people, but you're also a chameleon. So depending on your environment, you can adjust. It's very easy for an I personality to adjust to the other personalities. A D person cannot do it. That's the biggest, other personalities can do it, but for the I, it's the easiest, depending on the situation, okay? So, and this represents 11% of the population. Okay, so I want you to keep in mind the percentages of populations, because when we start talking about your business and how this relates to it, you're going to be able to look through your database and identify who the D's are, who the I's are, who the S's are, who the C's are. So then you can start creating lead gen models or smart plans or campaigns to address or to attract the personality types that you want to do business with. Okay, so an I personality. Who put down in the bottom right corner? Okay. So S, 69% of the population, stands for steady, stands for security, and stable. They don't like change. We're going to get into the big fears of each one in a minute. This is the majority of the people. So even if you look at this office, okay, so out of 100 people, 69 of them probably fit into this category. These are the people that like to have their hand held during a transaction. Sometimes when things go wrong, all they need is a hug. Right? Okay? And then who put themselves into the bottom right? And typically what happens is I don't even put this up because the high C people already know that percentage before I even put it up. So these people are correct, controlled, and compliant. They're kind of considered perfectionists. Right? Yeah, as I look at it. Yeah. This is about 17% of the population. So you can see that they're passive, but very task-oriented. D's are active, they'll talk to people, they make decisions quickly, and they're also task-oriented. Where over here, you've got very people-oriented, very active, or very passive. So the S's are those people that kind of sit at the back of the class, they don't want to be picked. But when they're picked, they're not afraid to talk, but they choose not to. Okay? So when we're talking about a D-style personality type, here are some of the characteristics. They have high egos. They seek authority. So they always want to be in charge or take the leadership role. Okay? They can become impatient. Their greatest fear is being taken advantage of. Okay? They do desire change, so they're constantly looking for the next opportunity. They get bored quickly. And they do many things at once. Just before I put this on presentation mode, I was talking to Jessica and Aaron, and I have about 25 tabs open. And those of you that have been on a Zoom call and I shared my screen, I know you guys all make fun of me about it. And even with my phone, I've got like 2,000 unread emails. It drives a high C personality insane. Right?
Yeah. It's like a red thing when I open Command.
Yeah. Right? So I have many things going on at once because my D starts to kick in. And I do respond to direct confrontation. I'm that kind of person, and this is my D characteristic. If there's a problem, come to me and let's deal with it. My worst fear is feeling taken advantage of. However, I also don't like passive aggressiveness. D's don't like it. Okay? Any questions so far? Typically, I pick on the D's because they have big shoulders and they can take it. Okay. The I's and the S's are a little bit more sensitive, and I'm a high I as well. So here are some strengths of a D personality. They're goal-oriented. Again, they like specifics. They like, facts. Okay? They see the whole picture. They're organized well, and they see practical solutions. They move quickly to action. You kind of want to be around a D during a catastrophe or something devastating, because they're always going to be calm. Say, don't worry, I got this. Figure it out. They delegate work, and they insist on production. They're constantly looking for more. Okay? They stimulate activity, and they thrive on opposition. They're strong-willed, productive, decisive. Typically, they're visionaries. So if we were to look at, in kind of like the corporate world, a lot of D personalities are CEOs on the C level, executive level. They're optimistic. They have a compulsive need for change, and they must correct the wrongs right then and there. They don't like to let things sit. They're not easily discouraged, and they're independent. They exert sound leadership. They establish goals. On their family side, they motivate family to action. They know the right answer, and if they don't, they still think they know. They organize their household, and they have little need for friends. Okay? They're social, but they don't need to talk to their friends every single day, which we'll get into the I's, and the I's, they need to talk to people. And they will work for group activity, and like I said, they excel in emergencies. Some of the limitations on a D personality, they're unsympathetic and cold. They can come across as they don't have empathy. Think about people that walk through the halls here, right? And you might be a high I, and you're like, "Hi, realtor," and they just walk past you, like, don't even know that you exist. It's not because they're an asshole. Sorry, it's because they're a D, right? And they're so in their own head. They don't have time to chit chat. They don't want to chit chat. It's not because they're being mean. Okay. They may come across as insensitive or inconsiderate, cruel and sarcastic, unforgiving, self-sufficient and domineering, argumentative and impatient. If you're a super high D, their personality can be explosive. They have a short fuse. Anybody know high Ds? Yeah, right. But they're proud, they're crafty, they can't relax. They're always moving and doing something. Okay. And they won't give up when losing. Okay. So when I coach a lot of D personalities, we work a lot on this. Because they're afraid they don't like to fail. And they will continue to do it. Even if there's like a 15-foot thick brick wall, and they will still keep driving their head into the wall. So we kind of got to pull them out, get them to reposition it, and maybe build a ladder to go over the wall or around the wall instead of trying to go through it. So a lot of D people, they are drivers. Okay, they're not complimentary or emotional. People, when you come across a D personality, you might think like they have zero emotion. They have low tolerance for error. They don't analyze the details. So when we talk about how to communicate with a D personality, we're going to talk how a C and a D communicate. And if you're part D and C, here you fight with yourself a lot, okay? Because you have two of the opposing personality types trying to work together. They get bored by trivia. They are a rash decision maker. They make decisions very quickly. So give me the facts so I can move on to the next opportunity or the next topic. They could be rude, tactless, manipulative, and demanding. The end justifies the means, and they work may dominate on focus, and they depend loyalty in ranks. They tend to be over-dominant, impatient with poor performance, and they won't let their children relax. So you might be married to a D. Okay? And they tend to use people, or they're too impatient. They don't say I'm sorry very often. They might be right, but they're unpopular, and they don't care about the popular vote. Okay? And they could be possessive. Any questions about the D? I feel bad about it because it's not bad to be a D. There's some great things about being a D personality. Okay. With an I personality, here are the main characteristics of an I. They're emotional. They're people-oriented. So when I say emotional, it doesn't mean they walk up and down the hallway crying all the time, right? But they can. But when they watch like or they listen to the Sarah McLachlan song about the dogs. And,
don't even.
Right? They get emotional about stuff like that, okay? Because they have a lot of empathy. They're people-oriented. Their greatest fear is rejection. Hence why I don't cold call or door knock. Because I would be depressed for 3 days if someone closed the door up. Not gonna happen, okay? Somewhat disorganized. I say somewhat, it is disorganization, but I give myself a little bit of credit here because I'm organized for me. That's what I can say. We're always optimistic and we're very encouraging. Okay. Some of the strengths for an I: outgoing and charismatic, warm and friendly, talkative, life of the party. They're compassionate, demonstrative. They're generous and sincere at heart. Good sense of humor. They have a good memory for stories. You know, people know good storytellers. I got a few people around me that are great, super high I. Enthusiastic, good on stage. They're wide-eyed and innocent. They love or live in the present, and they have a changeable disposition. So, like I said, I personalities can adapt very easily. They're highly influential. Okay. They volunteer for jobs. They think up new activities. Everything looks great on the surface. We're going to talk about the negative to that. They're creative, colorful. They have energy and enthusiasm. Starts in a flashy way. They inspire others to join, and they charm others to work. At home, they're liked by their children's friends. I don't know how many of you have your kids say, "Your dad's the coolest dad." Right? They buy them pizza. They turn disaster into humor. They're the circus master. They make friends easy. They thrive on compliments. They apologize quickly, and they like spontaneous activities, and they imbibe by others. So when we look at the strengths, I want you to think about who in your database is an I personality. And if you're an I personality, one of the things that when we're going to talk about the weaknesses of an I is if you have an I personality in your database, likely you're best friends with that person if you're an I. Okay? Problem with two I's working together is they never get anything done. Because they're just out talking and drinking and having fun. That's what they want to do instead of getting things done. So here's some of the limitations of an I. They're undisciplined and weak-willed, restless and naive, disorganized and unproductive, undependable, egocentric. I's love to be recognized. Okay? So if you're running a team and you have some I personality types on your team, you need to recognize their achievements. Okay? Exaggerate and compulsive talker. They're fearful and insecure. They dwell on trivia, egotistical and come across as obnoxious, controlled by circumstances, gets angry easily, and they may seem phony to some people because they may be over enthusiastic. Okay? They would rather talk now than work, forget about obligations, they don't follow through. That's a problem with mine. Undisciplined, priorities out of order, faces or decides by feelings, easily distracted, and wastes time talking. So not only are they easily distracted, so when you're running a team or working with your clients and you know they're an I personality, they're easily distracted, you gotta get them to focus. So if they're easily distracted by their kids, stuff's going on with their kids, and bring coloring books and crayons for the kids so that you can have your clients focus on what you're trying to achieve, okay? So we wanna limit the distractions when we're dealing with I personality types. They keep their home in a frenzy, disorganized and forgetful. They don't listen to the whole story. They need to be the center stage, dominate conversations, answers for others. They can be fickle and they make a lot of excuses. They insult anybody? Attacked, right? Yeah. Exactly, because you're high. You're emotional. So S personality types, like I said, majority of the population, probably the majority of the people in your database, unless you're specifically going for a demographic. Okay, if you're going for C-level executives as a client base, chances are the majority of your database will be D personalities. S's are they're loyal, gentle team players. They just love everybody. They just want everybody to get along. They're person of substance. Their greatest fear is loss of security. So they don't like change. And that's highly, highly important, especially when we're dealing with people's houses and selling them. Because you're going to get two personality types across the table, and you need to know both of their personality types. The husband can be super high D, like, yeah, we're selling. And the wife could be, I don't know. Right? Has anybody experienced that? I don't want to sell. I love this house. I love the neighborhood. I love the school district. She's a high S. So what we need to do is hold her hand and make the husband less D and drive it and make her comfortable with moving. They have a high level of trust. They can be possessive and they resist change and they adapt slowly. So when you're dealing with S personalities, if you're a D personality dealing with an S, you might need to slow down the process if you're a D. Because you're going to get frustrated when you have to deal with an S personality. Because they're not going to move as fast as you. You're like, hey, let's go. You said you're going to put the house up on the market like last week. What's going on? What? Meanwhile, they're dragging their feet and they're making excuses not to sell it. It's because of this. Okay. Some of the strengths: they're likable and diplomatic. They're efficient and organized, dependable, conservative and practical. They're a reluctant leader, low-key personality, easygoing and relaxed, patient and well-balanced, quiet but witty, sympathetic and kind, keeps emotions hidden, and they're happily reconciled to life. Okay? They're competent and steady, peaceful and agreeable. They have administrative abilities. Okay? They mediate problems, avoid conflicts, good under pressure, and finds the easy way. They make a good parent. They're not really ever in a hurry. Can take the good with the bad. They don't get upset easily. They're pleasant and enjoyable, good listeners, and they have a dry sense of humor. And they have several friends. And what I'll do is I'm going to use, when we go through the C's, after that I'll use an example, a real estate example of each of the personality types, and then you can kind of relate some of these things to those examples. Some of the limitations is they could be unmotivated or blasé. So like, again, not super not motivated to sell. They don't like change. So they could be a spectator, selfish and stubborn. They could be stingy, self-protective, indecisive and fearful, unenthusiastic, reticent, avoids responsibility, quiet, full of iron, too compromising and self-righteous. They may not be goal-oriented. When I coach, anybody that is in the coaching program will know this. When we do goal setting, it's specific goals. When I coach S personalities, it's like, I just want to do better than I did last year. It's like the worst thing ever to say to a coach. So we break that down and we get really specific. My D starts to kick in. I'm like, well, tell me what is better. Right? And so when you're dealing with an S, you may need to be a little bit more specific, or get them to be a little bit more specific on their needs and wants of the house. Because they would just, yeah, I'd like to have a great backyard. What does that mean? A great backyard, right? We develop questions around these personality types to help us influence to move them forward. Okay. They may lack self-motivation, hard to get moving, they resent being pushed. Anybody been told that? No, I don't like pushy realtors, pushy salespeople? It's because they're probably type S's.
I was thinking about my husband.
Is he a pushy type A?
No, he's just more like reluctant for change, I guess, and more concerned about the security. Like when I took on real estate, obviously it's a front-loaded risk.
Yeah.
And there was that when there was a little bit of that friction. Yeah.
My ex-wife, when I first got into real estate, we weren't married at the time. We got separated before that. But she literally said to me, when I got my real estate license, so when do you get a real job? Like, what? Right? And that's kind of like, but her personality is all about security. I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, what are you talking about? This is a real job. This is a business. I have a business, right? Anyway, they can be lethargic and careless. They could discourage others, and they're an observer. So this part is very interesting because it discourages others, and you got to be conscious of this, especially if you work in a group environment, because they can get toxic. So if this S personality is not happy, everybody around knows that that person's not happy. And then they may not become happy. Because S personalities still are influential, okay, especially if they're an IS. Undisciplined and unchangeable, they don't organize the home, they take life easy, they dampen enthusiasm, they stay uninvolved and indifferent to plans, they could judge others, and they could be sarcastic and teasing. Okay? Those are S's. C personalities, who are my C's? Okay. I apologize for this one. No, just kidding. They come across as somewhat of a perfectionist. They can be sensitive. Okay? Their greatest fear is criticism. They are super accurate. They ask many questions, and they require details. So if you're selling to a high C personality, typically C personalities are engineers, doctors, lawyers, some lawyers. I know a lot of not C lawyers. Accountants, exactly. So anything that needs to be high precision, right? MCAs, right? Tech people, right? It's like they're high C personality, very analytical. Strengths, analytical and idealistic. Perfectionist and conscientious. They're loyal, they're sensitive, self-sacrificing, so they will work and give up their personal life to make sure the job gets done. Okay, so we got to be conscious of that, especially for leading teams, because they'll say, yeah, no, everything's fine. Meanwhile, they'll go home and work all night on things that need to get done that they couldn't get done during the day, because the I was too busy disrupting them and interrupting them and kicking them out. Serious and purposeful, they're genius prone, talented and creative, artistic and musically gifted, philosophical and poetic, and appreciative of beauty. A lot of architects are high C's and artists. So they schedule oriented, perfectionist, high standards, detail oriented, persistence, and thorough, orderly and organized. They're economical. They see the problem. They find creative solutions, and they need to finish what he or she starts. And they like charts, graphs, and facts.
They're awesome.
Because they're awesome. They tell stories. They set typically high standards. They want everything done right. They pick up after their children. They sacrifice their own will. They encourage scholarship and talent. They make friends cautiously. Okay? And they're content to stay in the background, and they avoid drawing attention. No, right, because you got D on the other side. Now what happens is when you start using the two personalities, when they come up, and you, for instance, when you're building a business and you're high CD, and you're fighting with yourself, what happens is like you get in your own way sometimes. But by knowing that, you can set up, boundaries, you can set up tools that's going to help you move to the next stage. I deal with some people right now where they can't talk to anybody until they have their business card. Right? I need my business card. I'm like, why? Well, I have to hand it out, and it has to be perfect. I'm like, what? You can give them your phone number, right? But what happens is they don't want to do anything until it's perfect. Knowing that about your personality type, I slow down. I'm like, okay, so let's get your business card done, because nothing else is going to matter until this is finished. So we need to focus on that. We need a timeline to get it done, make it perfect, so that you can start picking up the phone and calling people. Okay? So if you're high C and you find yourself getting into those weeds because it's not perfect, back it up. Okay? Call me, I'll walk you through it. Walk you up the ledge. Some of the limitations of a C personality is moody, can be negative, critical, rigid, idealistic, self-centered and touchy, revengeful, persecution prone, unsociable, theoretical and impractical. They have a false sense of humility, have selective hearing, introspective and low self-esteem, tendency to be a hypochondriac, unrealistic goals. They could be too meticulous, become a martyr and sulks, lives through others, socially insecure, critical and unforgiving, holds back affections, antagonistic and vengeful. They're not people-oriented, so they get potentially depressed over imperfections. They choose difficult work, hesitant to start projects, and they spend too much time planning. Prefers analysis to work. They're self-deprecating, hard to please, sets unrealistic goals, and they need approval. Okay, that's like off the spectrum C personalities. Like I said, we typically have 2 or more that come to the surface when you're in stressful situations. Okay, so before we go into how to communicate, I'm going to use an example in real estate on each personality. Okay, so for instance, you're going on a listing presentation to a D personality. How do you recognize if they're a D personality right away? You ask them questions. As soon as you ask them, you show up at the door, first question you need to ask is, hey, can you take me on a tour? Tell me a little bit about your house. If they respond, my house is a 4-bedroom house, 2 bathrooms, I got a 2-car garage, how much can you sell my house for? Typically, they're a D personality. Because that's all they want. They want to know how much you're going to sell it for. They don't care about an average sale price or days on market. They don't care about that. They just want to know, here's what I'm looking for. What do you have to offer me? Okay. An I personality, you go into their house, say, hey, Jen, tell me about your house. And Jen's like, oh, come on into the kitchen. Oh my gosh, you should see, I just renovated the whole kitchen. You should see the countertop. Oh, it's,
We've done this before.
we flew it in from Italy. Look at how amazing it is. We have so much fun in this kitchen. It's so awesome. Yeah, there's 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. So what do your kids do for, like, where do they go to school? Hi, okay? Now we're besties, okay? A high S personality, when you go in and you say, hi, I'm Colin, tell me a little bit about your house. The response typically is, it's 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, you know, we love this neighborhood. You know, we love our neighbors, they're so amazing. You know, this neighborhood, like the school district is just phenomenal. I actually don't really want to leave it. If we can find another house in this neighborhood, I would love that. We just, you know, I don't know, my husband's kind of thinking of moving, but I really don't necessarily want to. High S, okay? C personalities. Hey, Sherry.
Why is it going to be?
Why is it going to be about me, right? Because you can take it. No, I'm just kidding. C personalities are, you know, tell me a little bit about your house. My house is 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. The master bedroom's 10 feet by 6.5 inches by 12 feet. 9.2 inches.
Built in 1958 with.
Yeah, we use screws on our floors, not nails. You know, there's a geothermal, you know, kit in the basement. You know, it's amazing. This house. That's a high C personality. Okay. So typically, you can identify who you're dealing with, even on the phone. Just say, tell me a little bit about your home, okay, or what your needs and wants are. Okay, by using what some of these characteristics are. So when you're communicating with the D, be brief and get to the point, okay? So if you can identify where you are on the spectrum, on the quadrants there, you can adjust to a D. If you're a D, you have a hard time doing this. Ask what questions, not how questions. What about that is important to you? Okay. Focus on the results. Highlight the logical benefits. They don't care that you have a 35-page listing presentation. They don't want to see it. They just want to know the numbers, and they want to know what you're going to do for them and how they're going to make money, okay? Or get them out of this house to help them with their problems, okay? Agree with the facts and ideas, not with people, okay? And discuss problems in light of how they affect the outcomes. Do not, and as in bold, repeat or ramble, focus on the problems, or be too sociable or generalized. I've lost listings because of this, because I was like trying to be their friend. And they flat out told me, because I asked them, I always go back and say, so why didn't I get why did you go with so-and-so and not with me? We didn't think you were aggressive enough. You're too nice. We didn't think you'd do a good job at the negotiating table. I'm like, way more experience than that guy. I actually taught him how to do what he's doing. But it's because of my personality. Okay. Any questions about that?
I'm curious to know how to communicate with a couple where one is a D, one's an S, and you're trying to kind of find that.
Good question.
Because I'm actually visualizing clients right now who are waffling on the selling buying process, and I know the wife is an S, and I know that he's a DI, and I'm like trying
to balance it, right? Or trying to.
Yeah, how do I have them in the same room and have a conversation with them that makes them both happy?
Yeah. So with knowing your personality, you can relate to the D because you're going to be quick to the point. You may have to slow down a little bit when you're talking to the wife. So you consciously have to switch gears back and forth. So you're talking to the D personality, answering their questions, turning to the wife and saying, so I know this is a lot.
Right. Okay.
And I know we're going really quickly. I can go in more detail should you need to feel more comfortable with what we're talking about. Right? So you just got to bounce back and forth and create those scripts.
Okay? And that's okay within that same discussion, just to say.
Absolutely. Because the last thing he's going to do is piss her off.
Amen.
You'll know quite quickly if it's not working for you, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right? Because even though when we're dealing with, you're going to experience different personalities from one person based on the process of buying or selling a house. Because there's so many. A listing presentation, they're going to show up one way. At the negotiation table, they're going to show up a completely other way, potentially. Or they're going to amplify what they already are. You know what I mean? So depending on how they deal with stress, this has happened to me where you think you know your client until you get into a heated negotiations or multiple offers, and then someone else in their personality pops up and you're like, who the hell is that? I've never met this person before. Right? That's happened to me and I was like, holy shit. So just be aware of those types of things that can happen, and by you understanding what these are, you'll have way better, one, you'll be way more confident in your communication. Two, you'll be able to think on your feet a lot faster and be able to adapt. Okay? When you're communicating with an I, build a favorable environment. Okay? So if they're high I personalities and it's a stressful situation, you got to deliver bad news, make it a favorable environment. It may not be best to take them to a restaurant or Timmy's. It might be best to bring them to the office or stay at their house. Let them talk about the ideas. We want to share the testimonials. So when you show up at a high I and you're trying to get the listing for a high I client, they want to know what people are talking about you. Okay? That's where testimonials are super, super important. Your Google review page. Allow for social time. Write details, but don't dwell on them. Okay? And create incentives for following through. Because they will drag their feet on a lot of things. They don't have a lot of follow through. So we want to design incentives to help them. So for instance, getting their house ready to list. We want to create incentives that, oh, you cleaned your house today. Awesome. Here's a Tim card. Here's a Tim Hortons gift card. So every time you do this, we're going to make sure that, and you want to set schedules with them. Okay. Do not eliminate social time. Don't do all the talking, because eyes like to talk. Don't ignore their ideas or tell them what to do. Right, Jen? High S's, how to communicate with a high S is build a safe environment. Show a genuine interest in them. Define goals, procedures, and their role in the plan. Patiently draw out the goals and give them time to adjust. Minimize perceived risks and assure personal follow-up. So when you're dealing with high S clients, again, we want to, what I tell people is, create the fantasy. Create the motivation. They might not be clear on what their motivation, why they're selling. but get them to move mentally. So all we need to do is move them physically. So when I'm dealing with a high S personality type and on selling their home and I'm trying to get the listing, I talk about the buy side. So what are you going to buy? Where are we going to go? Like, where are you moving to? Tell me why that's important. Okay. And I get them to think about the move already. And I have them move out before I put the paperwork down and say, now sign this, press hard, there's 4 copies. Okay. Now it's all DocuSign, they don't say that. Yeah. Don't be pushy, don't be aggressive, don't be demanding, abrupt, or controversial. Okay.
So Colin, let me ask you this, for your personality type, do you find this the hardest one to work with?
Because I'm a high IS,
You're high on
I'm a high ID.
Right.
This one I find can be frustrating at times, depending on the situation. Because they're very people oriented, I get along with S's because I'm all about people and relationships. Building businesses and the people I coach with high S's, it takes them a while to get moving. So I have some S's on my team in Ontario, and it becomes somewhat of a babysitting expedition where you're kind of like, okay, like my D kicks in, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you're not hitting your lead gen numbers. Like, make it happen, right?
So for me, I think it's these guys test patience for the most part. It's what.
Yeah, and same with like when you're dealing with clients, you're dragging their feet. It's like, okay, so I checked all the boxes on the buy. You want everything. All we need now is we need you to sign the paper. Just make it happen. Yeah. But that's where, by knowing that, we could build in the tools that's going to help motivate them. Or we're going to have to just be a little bit more patient. It's going to happen, but they need to be it has to be on their terms.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Because I find that, of course, this is 69% of who we're dealing with. I do find that, and maybe it's because of my DC, that when I'm talking to folks like that and I am genuinely interested and I'm trying to not be too pushy, I'm wondering where that balance point is, because they can see, well, she's not that interested, she hasn't been calling me, but at the same time I'm sending them stuff, I'll send them a text, send them a communication of some kind, but I feel like it's not personal enough. But then if I call instead of text and email, then I'm being pushy. So I really don't know how to.
Strategies around that.
Yeah.
And that's establishing, like right up at the front, the first meeting you have is establishing communication. How do you like to be communicated with? Write it down. Do you like to be texted, phoned, emailed? Do you want me to send you a smoke signal? I don't know. What do you need? And I get them to answer, and then I ask them, what's the frequency? D people, they don't care. I don't want to hear from you. Just sell my freaking house, right? I people is like, yeah, call me after every showing. Let me know what happened. Did they love it? Right? That's so funny. You're like, I got them all the time. Right? Call me after show. And then after you show the house or do the open house, come on over. We'll have drinks. Okay. No, not gonna happen. So you ask the frequency, and then you can establish that. Because with S people, typically they're not going to reach out to you and say, "Hey, how are the showings?" Right? What's the feedback? They're not going to do it because they sit in the back. And then what will happen though is if they don't hear from you, literally what you just said, they're going to be like, "She doesn't care about that."
Right.
And they're going to tell their friends. Well, I do. Sherry's a realtor. Right? They'll call Chad. Sherry's a realtor, but we don't even talk to her. So can you sell our house? It happens.
Yeah.
Right? And you're kind of like, Sherry's in my office. I would love to sell your house, but I'm not going to step on her toes because she's a high D and she's going to. Yep. Right? So it does happen. So that's where we establish those tools and those boundaries right up front. C, personalities. Be prepared. Prepare your case in advance. Use accurate data. Assure them of no surprises. Okay. Use precise explanations and be specific. And give patience and diplomatic explanations. Do not refuse to explain the details or answer questions vaguely or casually. You throw up a stat, back it up to a high C person because they'll fact check it. Okay. So I put the stats on there because I took it from another thing. You know, the C's would be like, this is really, no, it's 16.9%, it's not 17%. Just kidding. This is a very difficult personality to deal with if you're a D personality.
They help you to balance though.
100%. On certain aspects. But if you're negotiating, you're a D personality and you're negotiating with a C personality, you're just kind of like, oh my God, where are you? Enough. Right? It's like, I don't care how many houses sold. I don't care how many years of experience you have. I don't care. What's your client want to pay?
Result, what's your result?
What's your result?
Forget how you get there, what's the result?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but we, as other personalities, we got to slow down because we're all here to help make the deal move forward and win on both sides, right? Win-win or no deal. It's a killer way of things. So, but by being aware of these types, like literally, you're gonna go home hopefully today and have dinner with your family, and you'll start looking around at your kids and your husband and wives and stuff, and you'll be like, so you're a D, you're an S, right? And it's to a point now where you can ask 2 or 3 questions right up front, and you'll be able to identify who they are, and then you'll learn and you'll know how to communicate with them and how not to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one to figure out real quick is, what do you do for a living? It's part of the forward conversation, right? It's like, what's your family, your occupation? What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a realtor. Awesome. So you're probably a lot of them. There's multiple personalities. So if somebody says to you, I'm a doctor, okay, boom, I know you're a high C. To an extent, right? I can ask that. One of the other questions is, you know, like I said, tell me a little bit about your home. Tell me a little bit about, and you want them to talk, because the more that they talk, you're going to find out real quick who they are. So tell me a bit about your home. Tell me about what you're looking for. Okay. What is important to you about that? Not why is it important. Anybody do the why discovery, or does anybody know Simon Sinek? Okay. So he always talks about start with why. Right? Your why. So when we talk about your why, this is kind of a tangent, so I apologize, it's not part of the disc, but the reason why they don't want you to ask why questions is because it's hard to describe feelings. And why is, so why did you do that? Why do you love your husband? You're like, I don't know, I just do. You just love him, right? You love, there's feelings, so it's hard. So when we do the why discovery, we actually learn how to connect the 2 parts of our brain, the limbic part and our neocortex part of our brain. So typically they don't talk to each other. The neocortex part is the vocabulary part, the limbic part is the feeling part.
So if somebody asks you why, how do you react?
About
the why question.
My why?
Anything.
So why should I use that?
No, your personality type specifically. When somebody asks you why, how do you react? How do you feel about that inside?
So I get a little bit uneasy. I'm a little bit more comfortable with it now because I understand it. Right. But typically, what I'll try to do is I'll change it or describe what is important to me about that feeling. Right. Yeah. So I love my wife because how she makes me feel. Okay. It's important to me to feel this way, and she does that.
I made the mistake of asking why on D personalities, and they feel like they're being challenged. Yeah. And that aggressive feeling comes out in them. And then you have to disarm and switch gears and talk to them a different way.
Yeah. So want the what's, right? Yeah. So, and you can get the answers you need just by changing that one word, right? Yeah. So now why, or if you ask an I personality why, they'll be like, yeah, because I love everything. I love pizza and my wife and rainbows and sunshine. Yeah. So when you're a D personality, okay, and you're relating to another D personality, mutual respect must exist to avoid conflict. Both people must understand one another's realms and boundaries of authority. Have you ever seen 2 bulls smash their heads together? They're like the rams. That's 2 Ds. When you're a D relating to an I, you must have direct communication and deal with the issues in a straightforward manner. Negotiate the commitments and goals on an equal basis. It's very tough for a D to do, okay? Because the D is We don't change. It's our way or my way. With a D relating to an S, avoid being pushy, recognize the sincerity, the high S's, good work. Be friendly, more easygoing, and steady paced. You have to work hard at that. D's with C's, slow down, avoid the tendency to omit or minimize the details. Expect the high C to ask questions. Don't view the high C's need for information as opposition. So it's funny, my director of education, some of you know her, Rochelle Allison, I'm sure you've seen some of the emails coming from her. Anyway, she's a high C, and I'm a high D. Our meetings are painful sometimes. For me, for her, it's, and I know we actually tend to irritate each other, but we laugh at it because we know the personality types now. And I'm like, Rochelle, we're getting caught in the weeds here. It's like, we gotta move on to the next topic. She goes, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, yeah, it's funny, yeah. I'm like, okay, move to the next thing. Right? We spent too much time on this one, right? So we can have fun with it. We're all very productive, but like you said, Chet, she does definitely balance me out because she checks the boxes, and I can't live without her. All right. When you're in, check time. I know we're a bit over. So when you're an I relating to a D, you must have direct communication, deal with issues in a straightforward manner, same way. With an I and an I, be friendly, complimentary, acknowledge each other's accomplishment, listen sincerely instead of planning on what next to say. Who does that? I do actually a listening class, 3 types of listening. And typically level 1 listening is, yeah, I'm listening to what you're saying, but I'm actually thinking about what I'm going to say before you finish your sentence. Level 1 listening. I can hear what you're saying, but I have no idea what you're saying. Level 2 listening is, it's focused listening. It's, I'm taking in what you're saying and I'm actually visualizing what you're saying. We go in and out of 1 and 2 listening all the time. There's a tool, when you catch yourself going out of level 2 listening, I always do this, and I'm sure some of you have experienced me say this to you on the phone when we talk, is if I catch myself and I'm not really listening to what you're saying, I'll ask the question, oh yeah, that sounds great, tell me more about that. It means I wasn't listening to what you just said. So I need you to tell me more, and then I'll catch, okay, I got you, I'm back with you now, okay? I to an S, slow down, be more easygoing, show appreciation, and sincerely, and establish a friendship with the high S. Above all, don't be pushy. And with a C, present the facts clearly, prepared for discussion. Expect the C's to express doubts. Give them time to evaluate data before making a decision. Okay. S's need to be a little bit more assertive when they're dealing with D's. Recognize that a D may view kindness as weakness. Deal with the issues in a straightforward manner and try to increase your pace. So if you find you're a D and you're dealing with, or an S and you're dealing with a D seller, just be quick and get through it. Okay? Be friendly, complimentary, listen to ideas and recognize the high I's accomplishments and recognize and accept the high I's experimental nature. Actually, I'll go back to the S and the D. So I have a good friend of mine. When I first got my real estate license, yeah, they say, oh, take your listing presentation, try it on your friends. So my buddy wanted to use me to sell his house and all that stuff. I had this gorgeous listing presentation, like 35 pages. I made it to page 1. He didn't want to listen to it. He's like, Colin, really? I'm like, no, Joey, you gotta just look through it. Couldn't even sell him on that. He said, just sell my goddamn house. So, or he says, or I'll use somebody else that can do this. I'm like, okay. So you may not need your listing presentation for every listing. S isn't, when you're dealing with another S, move at a steady pace, express appreciation, establish a friendship, and remember that trust and acceptance are developed over time. Think long term. A lot of people, when we're building businesses, especially newer agents, are really impatient, okay? Because they're like, I need a transaction today. Yeah, you do. I need a transaction today. I want a transaction. What happens is they're missing is we're in the relationship business. Real estate is the result, okay? So if you're a high S or a high I and you're people oriented, it may take you a little bit longer to build a business because you got to focus on building those relationships. High D people, and there's lots of them out there, especially in real estate. Anybody take bold here? Do you know who excels at bold? And bold is a program that Keller Williams puts on for 8 weeks, and it's a high level habit building, functioning, like it's an amazing course. I've taken it 9 times, but you know who does really, really well with bold? D personalities, built for D personalities.
You're gonna love it when they do the breakout and everybody is expected to start making telephone calls. You know who the Ds are in the room. They're
Oh,
bang
yeah.
right on the
They're
phone.
like,
They're
boom,
calling.
boom, boom.
Yeah.
And they're
The
giving a
people are
word.
like, I don't wanna call.
Oh, I got another voicemail.
Yeah,
So-
thank God.
So I'm a high I, and I took bold for the first time, and I was determined. I was like, I'm gonna do the bold 100. Everyone else is doing it. I'm gonna do it. And bold 100 is you have to have 100 conversations in one day.
Oh my God.
Like Bob Best, he's in Ontario. He does bold 100 every day. He's got it down to a science now where he does it in 3 hours. He has 100 conversations in 3 hours.
How does he do?
He uses Mojo Dialer and just like,
I mean, it's funny, like, that does work, how does he?
Production.
oh, production wise, well, I think he's retired now, but he was always the top 10 in Canada. Yeah, and it was just transaction after transaction after transaction. Talk to people in his database. You're like, Bob, who? He never touched anybody in his database. Right. So I think what happens is when you start to focus on, when you're a transactional agent like that and you start to focus on your database, you uncover gold. So it all depends on how you want to build your business. So when I did the bold 100, I was like, I'm going to do this because I want one of those little pins, and I'm going to do it. I nearly died talking to 100 people in one day. It took me 12 and a half hours. And it wasn't phone calls. I did some phone calls. I did some door knocking. I did, some pop-bys. I kind of mixed it up. But I was just like, at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm never doing that again. So could I compete with those guys? No. But you look at my business, which is based on relationships, because I'm high I don't have 7,000 people in my database. I have 1,200. And out of those 1,200, about 1,000 of them love me. Right? And they love my team. And that's all we need. Now we grow because they keep introducing us with other people. Right? And we do have other ways. We do Facebook ads and all that other stuff. But we spend most of our time on our people and our relationships because that's who we are. So when you start looking at building your business, like, who are you? And what do you do well? I suck at doing the bold 100. Anybody that has taught it, when I was a team leader, we had a couple people come in, I'm like, don't even ask me to do the bold 100. I'm not gonna do it. They're like, why? You gotta do this, man, you're bold. I'm like, nope, it's not gonna happen because I will quit real estate, period. Okay, so just be conscious of that. With your S dealing with the C, focus on the facts over relationships. Expect the C's to express doubts and give them time to evaluate data before making a decision. C's dealing with the D must have direct communication, deal with the issues in a straightforward manner, negotiate commitments and goals on an equal basis. C to an I, be friendly, complimentary, and avoid the tendency to challenge the ideas of a high I by presenting data or asking for more details. C's to an S, be amiable and relaxed, work at establishing a friendship with the high S, show appreciations for the tasks well done. And then C to a C is focused on the facts and the details, remove the apparent threats, plan carefully, accept and encourage doubts and questions, and provide ample time for evaluation. Okay. Does that help at all? Like, I know it's very high level, but does that help you kind of get a grasp as to who's in your world, who you are? Yeah. Awesome. Now going back to bold, take bold. Don't not take bold, because it always kicked my ass to get me in production fast. So I don't want to go on bold because I love it. I think it's great. Even my personality. But just know your limitations, because you don't want to stress out. Okay. Awesome. Any questions about any of this stuff? come over. It's a little warm in here. It's all good. Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you having me today. I'm going to be around for the next couple of hours if you want to hang back and chat. Nice. I like to do that.
If anybody wants to do lunch, I would ready.
Says the I personality. Yeah. Awesome. So who wants to do the disc profile? Who's done it?
Done it?
Want to do it?
I would like to.
You've done it already?
Terrifying how
I've done it.
accurate it is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not very long, but
No.
you do it all online.
I think it'd take you about 15 minutes to
Yeah.
finish it, and
But
then you get a 55-page report.
when I read it to my husband, he's like, what did you have to do? They actually got to know you that well.
Yeah.
Like it was
What was
scary.
terrifying?
It's amazing.
How accurate it was. It was like just answering questions that they had no idea who I was. I answered the questions and it was bang on accurate. Yeah,
Did you perceive yourself that way?
yeah. There were no surprises in it for me. Which was good.
So have you taken it, Angie?
No, I like.
Okay, take it, yeah. So just reach out to Jessica and she'll send you the link, and then we'll validate it together.
So I asked Colin what I was before I found out what I was, and it was spot on. So it's ID.
Your ID.
He was
You're
like
like me.
ID, and I'm like, so, yeah, I know, right. Right on. In order, I being hired.
And you'll see some things like when you look at the line, so there's things that come above the line and that's what shows up. And then there's like the other ones that are not, they don't come as organic to you or more naturally to you. You have to work towards them, but there's things that show, it's kind of the opposite when you're below the line. So for instance, I have no C, like I am so far off on the C side, so what happens is I get stressed because my C is so low, when I have to deal with details. Right? It's like kryptonite to Superman for me. Give me a spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers and I'm just like, ugh, I can't function. Right? Where it's like, the high C personality is like, this is my jam. I love this. I need the data, the stats. I like to look at the stats, but I can't decipher it. I have to have it explained to me. So when we do our business planning clinics and stuff, we talk about the measurable key performance indicators. Keller Williams calls it, we talk about your matrix or your measurables, right? Your KPIs, right? So I have, Keller Williams measures, I think it was like 25 different metrics of your business. When you guys do the year-end report or the month-end reports with your multi-year trends, you'll see, contracts written, that's a measurable. It's a key performance indicator for KW, so they measure that. Offers written, solds, units, revenue, profit share, like all that stuff. For me, I'm like, I need 5 for my business. How many calls did we do this week? It's a measurable for us. Right? We talk about lead measures and lag measures. So those are the things that for me, as my D, I need to look at 5, because then just the facts, and then I know we're doing well, or we're not doing well. Okay. If you're a C and you're measuring everything, you can get bogged down with those things. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you,
But thank
We
you.
know you like it.
Thank you.
Remember, he likes to sit at the back
Yeah, I think I'm the I, like this is the closet I, where I'm sitting in the back of the room, but I'm the one that chirps in the back of the room too. Like, hey, look at me over here. I'm in the back. But yeah. Awesome. Was that helpful?